Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Zahm, president of Procore. Thank you for joining us today. Before I begin, I want to address what's happening in the United States right now. We're all here for the Next Step Summit. When we developed this event and this program, we of course were thinking of next steps as it relates to COVID and the recession. But as we've seen over the last few weeks, our next steps need to be composed of so much more. I want to take a minute to state that at Procore, we stand in solidarity with the Black community, all people of color, and anyone experiencing injustice. As we look to build the future, we need to think about more than just buildings. We have a collective responsibility to build a more just and equitable society. So thank you for your time today, but more importantly, thank you all for the role you play in building the communities we're all a part of. Procore is building technology to empower you and your teams because we believe in the value of what you do. And we know that behind every great project is a team of great people. So we're in the midst of a pandemic and a recession, and we've seen some incredible resilience and groundbreaking acts from Procore customers and partners during this time. Whether it's donating masks, building tents in hospitals, or accelerating medical facility projects, you've really gone above and beyond. Thank you to companies such as Cleveland, Suffolk, Robinson Morton, and all of you who are helping overcome COVID-19. At Procore, we don't want cost concerns to slow down the important work being done in response to the pandemic. So we invited our customers to access the Procore platform and our customer support for free for up to $5 billion worth of total construction volume to support their emergency relief efforts running on the Procore platform. Submissions for free emergency project support have now closed, and I'm happy to report that we received an overwhelming response from our customers around the world. It's really great that so many of you took us up on this offer. Thank you. Also at Procore, we have worked to support the construction community in response to the pandemic and the recession in many other ways. One area of focus for Procore is combining our technology and our data in new ways and leveraging this as a resource for you. I want to share what we're seeing, hearing, learning, and what we're doing about it. I hope this will help guide your next steps too. Since owners are a leading indicator for our industry, we surveyed 41 owners and developers in April to get a pulse on the real impact of COVID-19. About 2/3 of those owners ground up development projects, and half their capital improvement projects were still active in April. The rest had been put on hold. The sobering news is that owners and developers report pulling back around 1/3 of their 2020 capital plans. Looking at next year, a majority expect their 2021 capital plans to be lower than 2019 as well. So that's 2 years of expected contraction. A majority have already experienced project delays and supply chain disruption, and 75% expect to keep seeing those effects, along with a contraction of funding sources and tenants needing to renegotiate leases. However, there is optimism. Most owners and developers expect an economic rebound before the end of 2020. That's the 81% on the top. On another optimistic note, these times present an opportunity to transform the way construction gets done. 78% of owners anticipate an increased use of collaboration technology. So that's a snapshot of the sentiment from owners and developers, an important leading indicator of the way forward for the construction industry. And now I want to share something that we're really excited about. It's a new initiative at Procore and an interesting byproduct of COVID-19. As this crisis started, we realized we have a unique data set that is really valuable to the entire construction industry. Trade associations told us that they were struggling to quantify the impact of COVID-19 on the industry, thus finding it difficult to lobby Congress effectively to ensure that construction was part of each of the recovery packages. So we did what Procore does best. When we see an area where we can make a difference, we get to work. We've created the Procore Construction Activity Index. It's a weekly index that aggregates job site activity from Procore, as well as publicly available information to measure construction activity during COVID-19. What you're seeing here on the left is the worker hour change by state, and on the right is the change in total US worker hours week by week versus pre-COVID conditions. You can check this data out on our website as well. We're updating it weekly, so it's near real-time data, and you can drill down by state, by company size, and by industry. Now, Procore has partnered with the AGC and other industry associations to share this job site data. If you're interested in this data now, just wait until you see how much more powerful this gets over time. The vast quantity and quality of the data in Procore is almost unimaginable. And I encourage you to join the session later today for a closer look and to see how you can leverage this data for your own business insights. So clearly, all of us here at Procore are excited about the data, and I hope this data will be useful for you as well. Now, I'll cover some of the other ways Procore is supporting the industry in case they're useful for your work. I'm going to stick to 5 headlines, but there's a lot more going on. So, headline number 1, we introduced 10 new inspection templates. These templates were sourced by OSHA and expert consultants. These have been hugely appreciated by small and medium-sized GCs, those who typically don't have dedicated safety staff creating and implementing standard templates. We've had feedback that these templates are big time savers. You definitely want to check them out. They've been automatically added to the company-level inspections tool for all companies with the inspections tool enabled. Number 2, we've created a connection between the field and the office through free video integrations with our Procore platform. Now, the choice is yours between Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and GoToMeeting. These are some of our most popular integrations ever. One of our customers, Nicole Carter of Big D Construction, said, the ability to create that Zoom meeting within Procore provides the option for the owner and the architect to jump directly on that call and walk through the site with us. Customers are able to get everyone on a video together, do site walks, and make real-time field decisions with full transparency right from within Procore. We've been pleased to hear from many of our customers who've expressed appreciation for Procore's ability to support their remote work. One of the most flattering compliments has been the comparison of Procore and Zoom, as Procore is now sometimes being called the Zoom of construction. Next item, our ecosystem around integrations has grown a lot. We now have over 200 partner integrations. These integrations support remote work and more in these challenging times. Many of our partners have introduced innovative new features in response to COVID. Take Nifty AI's health survey bot, for example. The bot automates COVID-19 health checks and writes the data directly back into Procore's inspections tool. Another partner, smartvid.io, added a COVID-19 tag to their AI that analyzes groups of people using video to make sure they're physically distancing. So superintendents or safety supervisors can view this footage to see whether there are bottlenecks on the job site, for example, that are preventing effective distancing. So whether you need to run health checks, manage physical distancing, or manage other complicated things like scheduling, payments, communications, we've got something for you in our partner ecosystem. We've also launched a COVID-19 resource center on our online Procore community. It's a centralized space for key Procore industry and government resources. You can attend informational webinars, join discussion groups, and tap into shared resources to learn how construction professionals around the world are responding to the pandemic. Another thing that's going on, this one is great. Procore has just kicked off a new partnership with the American Subcontractors Association. ASA members will get exclusive discounts on the Procore platform. I'm excited because this helps specialty contractors. When Procore was founded, we initially focused only on general contractors. We've since expanded our offering to meet the specific goals and needs of both owners and specialty contractors as well. Procore helps specialty contractors manage labor, simplify their change orders, and stay profitable from anywhere. It's exciting to see a growing number of specialty contractors use Procore to make their teams safer and more successful. I hope all 5 of these initiatives make your jobs just a little easier in these challenging times. If you'd like more information, you can visit us at procore.com and request to speak to someone at Procore. So, we all know that the construction industry has taken a hit. We're all watching the same news and we're all concerned about the future. The various teams at Procore have had many conversations with people across the industry to build a better understanding of what comes next. We've been talking to owners, to GCs, specialty contractors, and associations. What we're constantly hearing is that there is still optimism and there's a big interest in the future of construction. Taking together all of these conversations and a lot of data have shaped Procore's current worldview. Here are 3 main takeaways. First, there's no doubt that the construction industry is contracting. We think construction volume will shrink for a few years, but we also don't think it's going to be as bad as a lot of people are predicting. Which brings me to project starts. That's what will determine the industry's trajectory. To understand the impact of COVID-19 on construction activity, it's important to distinguish between ongoing and planned projects. While COVID has caused lengthy delays to ongoing projects, most of them will ultimately be completed because it's really expensive to walk away from an active project. What remains to be seen is whether planned new projects are temporarily delayed or entirely canceled. COVID-19 has clearly led to accelerated digital transformation. Perhaps that's a silver lining in these tough times. We've heard this from many companies across industries. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, recently said, "We saw 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months." We're seeing this in Procore's business as well. Our video conferencing integrations with Zoom, Teams, and GoToMeeting have been adopted by more companies more rapidly than any other integrations in our history. Overall, around 20% of our inbound requests for information are from companies looking to digitize. As we look across owners, general contractors, and specialty contractors, we are selling more construction software to companies who are seeking to move beyond just using some combination of paper and email and Excel. There's a steady stream of new customers coming on board with Procore as job sites come back online and prospective customers understand the value of Procore's connected platform ecosystem and partner integrations. That does also mean technology-wise that your peers who you considered as being in the technology dark ages just months ago may catch up with you faster than you may have anticipated. One thing that's clear to all of us at Procore is that none of us have been here before. This shifting landscape is forcing all of us to innovate faster as we reimagine the places where we work, live, and play, how we shop, how we educate, how we define and build community. It's definitely changing. But if there's one industry that will rally together, it's this one, because change is your constant. You are an industry of groundbreakers. When things get hard and other people throw in the towel, you roll up your sleeves and get to work. As the world around you continually shifts, you find a way to build our world and our communities. A shining example of this is a story we heard from XL Construction. Executives talking about their own employees told us this story. XL Construction employees took it upon themselves to set up a fund to help the craft workers who were the first to be laid off from projects that came to a halt because of COVID-19. By donating their PTO and other things, they were able to put together over $340,000 to help 120 craftspeople pay for basic necessities like rent and groceries. This was all employee activated. Isn't that amazing? That's just one of many inspiring examples of how people in construction rally together. So let's focus on digital transformation and getting projects started. Let's keep moving forward together. I want to take a moment to say thank you again from all of us here at Procore. Thank you to all the groundbreakers who are with us here today. Thank you for the role you play in building the communities we're all a part of. This time has made me even more grateful and proud to be a partner to this industry. To the people behind every great project, I want you to know that the entire Procore team wakes up every day with one mission, and that is to create one construction platform that connects the entire project team from the office to the field and across companies. We're providing one place to work together to do what you do best, build. We give everyone from the owner to the GC to the specialty contractor the tools needed to get the job done, all while breaking down the communication and data silos that have been holding the industry back. Now, to dive deeper into our platform and how our technology can help companies weather storms, I'd like to invite Aaron Loper to tell you all about the Procore platform.
Thank you, Steve. So sorry you couldn't be here with us, but we appreciate you zooming in. Now, just to echo one of Steve's sentiments, we're experiencing events with no real precedent in our lifetimes. But I don't doubt for one second the ability of the construction industry to adapt accordingly. Now, from our perspective at Procore, anything short of improving the lives of construction professionals in every corner of the industry would mean that we're not living up to our vision. And this is why we are so laser focused on helping our construction partners weather recession and global pandemic. And to do that, it's important that we help you control the things you can and mitigate the risk of things you can't. So with that said, we're here to lend a small helping hand by giving you the right tools to get the job done, even in the face of a global crisis. Now, that's certainly one way to think about the Procore platform, as a tool to help you navigate this current crisis. The team here has really been leaning into that over the last several months, because being a partner to construction is in our DNA, and we want to help you. But if I step back for a moment, it should be pretty clear that the platform is far more than just a crisis navigation tool. We've built an open, flexible, connected, and secure infrastructure for solving construction challenges that is creating a paradigm shift in this industry, allowing Procore customers to realize incredible productivity gains today while adapting to meet the increasing complexity of modern construction. And this approach of building a platform rather than a collection of one-off solutions has set us apart from the rest of the construction tech market. And we took this approach of connecting everyone in construction on a global platform because we have a fierce belief in the value of a fully integrated construction ecosystem. And making life easier for construction professionals means handing them a reliable set of tools for managing complex construction projects. And an open, flexible, connected, and secure platform is the best way to do that. And it's times like these when disconnected and disjointed solutions begin to crumble under the weight of the moment, and the Procore platform shines brightest. It's that ability to shine under pressure and innovate quickly in the face of rapid change that leads industry experts like Frost & Sullivan to refer to Procore as the industry's leading end-to-end construction management software solution. And we don't take that type of compliment lightly. Praise like that has to be earned every day, over and over again, by delivering unmatched user experience and big, tangible business value for our users. And there are all sorts of benefits that the Procore platform conveys to users. Time savings for project teams, project and company-wide risk reductions, reduced rework, better margins, better cash flow management with faster payment applications and billing. But most importantly, the Procore platform helps customers do more. And when we surveyed our customers, they reported on average being able to manage 30% more work since beginning to build with Procore. That is just serious business growth that our technology is enabling. And we didn't stumble into creating the industry's leading construction management platform by accident. We've worked hand in hand with industry members from day one to create a flexible, intuitive, and easy-to-use solution for every member of the construction lifecycle. And while some companies say they have a platform, what they really have is a patchwork solution that's been cobbled together. This means they deliver an inconsistent user experience, disconnected workflows and products, no analytics or search, no partner ecosystem of apps you love, and data is siloed. Procore gives you a real foundation to build on. The Procore platform connects all your people and tools with one consistent experience, giving you flexible tools, connected workflows, search, and the power to integrate with the apps you already use and love, all with the power to collect and analyze the data you create to help you be more data-driven. Now, if your software isn't doing these things, then it's not really a platform. It's just pretending to be. Thousands of customers around the globe have already been able to spot the difference. Procore has already connected over 8,500 owners, general contractors, specialty contractors, architects, and engineers across more than 125 countries. Those are owners like Oxford Real Estate or Boston Children's Hospital, or GCs like Balfour Beatty and Griffin and Crane, or specialty contractors like US Engineering and FSG. These folks chose Procore because we're doing for construction what companies like Amazon, Netflix, Shopify, or Apple have done for their respective industries. And we now have over 1 million projects created on the Procore platform as a testament to our impact. And in the past year, we've released hundreds of new features designed to support every major stakeholder across a construction project. This is basically Procore Platform 2.0. And these improvements to the core functionality of Procore's platform make it faster, more flexible, and more intuitive. And this type of rapid innovation is what has made us the industry leader, and it's how we plan to help you future-proof your construction projects. So let me give you a few examples. We've released configurable and custom fields across all our tools that allow you to fully customize the Procore experience for your teams. We've released custom workflows so you can guide the flow of information how you see fit, or Procore Search, allowing you to search across all your Procore products from one single location, and Analytics to help you turn your project data into business insight. And on top of all of that, I'm excited to announce Procore Connect. We're making it easier to manage the flow of your project data while ensuring everyone is working off the same information. Procore Connect allows team members to work in their own company's Procore account and, with the appropriate permissions, share project information with their teammates working in other company accounts. No more double entering of data, and you have full control over your project data at all times. So let's dig a little deeper. To do that, I'd like to introduce Michelle from the product marketing team to announce, from the appropriate social distance, some of the brand new features and tools that make Procore Platform 2.0 even better.
Thanks, Aaron. First things first. If you're not supporting the entire project lifecycle, you're not solving for the needs of modern construction. That's why Procore made some big investments in pre-construction. This year, we launched a new product, Procore Pre-Qualification. In today's construction market, a successful pre-qual process is critical to better risk management. Now more than ever, people are working on new project types in different regions and with unfamiliar contractors in order to meet their growing business needs. Having a robust qualification solution can help you identify the lowest risk partners. Here's how Procore can help. With Procore, you'll have access to over 200 industry standard questions. The questions cover 4 categories: general information, safety, insurance and bonding, and financials. You can turn questions on or off, leave them optional, or mark them required. What sets Procore Pre-Qualification apart is the ability to customize your form at any moment. We make that easy so you spend less time configuring and more time evaluating. Once you've built your form, it's a simple click to invite companies to pre-qualify. Unlike other solutions, Procore will soon give you the ability to create custom questions. Choose from 7 different question types and customize your form to the unique needs of your business. With Procore, all critical communication is centralized, so your internal stakeholders can stay up to date on the process. You can easily review all comments, add notes, and determine a status. And if you have Procore's bid management product, you can easily filter by qualification status so that you only invite qualified companies to bid. This seamless platform experience from product to product, workflow to workflow allows you to streamline your process and help you reduce risk. While pre-qualification can help strengthen your risk management strategy, our next feature takes controlling your data to the next level. Virtual design is changing the way teams collaborate on projects. Now, with Procore BIM, you can view models from anywhere, on a desktop or in the field with the release of WebViewer. We've expanded the reach of access to 3D models, so the entire construction team is building smarter with stronger connections between the fields and office. And speaking of connections, another massive benefit of the platform is in having connected tools like field productivity and project financials. With labor data from field productivity pushing into the budget and project financials, you can understand the financial impact of labor productivity in real time. For self-performing contractors, labor is the most precious resource, but it's also the most common cause of budget overruns. Waiting 1 or 2 weeks for payroll to understand labor costs is dangerous. Issues could have already come and gone, making it too late to course correct. With Procore, the moment a timesheet is submitted in the field, those labor hours automatically update the budget as dollars, so you can get real-time insight into labor costs. Project managers and executives back in the office instantly see the labor productivity information they need to keep projects on schedule and on budget. They can identify at-risk scopes of work and act fast to make decisions that protect budgets and maximize profitability. Especially now, when supply chains are in flux and job site closures are causing project delays, this ability to proactively adjust to the facts on the ground and make decisions in real time is invaluable. And if you're going to make real-time adjustments to a project in flight, communication is key. Effective communication is hard and everyone does it differently. So we created the new correspondence tool to allow your teams to manage communication in the way that makes sense for your business. It's impossible to talk about construction without mentioning the tremendous amount of communication that needs to occur throughout the entire project lifecycle. Projects of all sizes are often at risk of delays and cost overruns because of the all too frequent communication failures. On top of that, projects are getting more and more complex, involving an increasing number of participants, making effective communication all the more challenging, but all the more important. The quicker you can speed along communication between stakeholders, the faster the project gets completed, on time and on budget. The correspondence tool allows you to capture and manage all project comms in one system of record, helping to minimize the risk of miscommunication and contractual disputes. If and when a dispute arises, all the data and correspondence history is stored and easily accessible in Procore to help you build your case. That audit trail is paramount. And with the power of the Procore platform, this correspondence management system is much more than an inbox. With just a few clicks, convert any correspondence into a change event or link a correspondence to a specific markup on a drawing, so there's no room for error. We're so excited about all these enhancements to the platform. Each of them represent a significant expansion of Procore's technology, and there's so much more to come in the next few months. And with that, I'll hand it over to Aaron.
Thanks, Michelle. We really are so excited about all these enhancements to the Procore platform, and they do each represent a significant expansion of our technology. And there is much more to come over the next few months. But that said, the technology is only one piece of the puzzle. From the beginning, we knew that if we were going to support this industry through this rapidly shifting landscape, we needed to be more than a platform. We needed to be a partner. And being a partner means our one focus is your industry, which has allowed us to build a product that's both intuitive and easy to use because it was built alongside partners just like you, as well as offering unlimited seat licenses and a subscription model based on your construction volume run through the platform. It also means our one measure of success is your success. So we go above and beyond in everything we do. offering you a tailored implementation process and unlimited support from real people, not robots. And finally, being a partner is where our mission of connecting everyone in construction on a global platform comes from. We recognize that if your job is to build the spaces that bring our communities to life, our job is to build the products that help you do just that. So join us and become part of the growing community of groundbreakers who are transforming the way we build. So thanks again for joining our Next Step Summit. We've got plenty of exciting things to share, and we're going to take a quick break. So grab some water, stretch, regroup, and we'll be back online at 11:25 for our next session, a roundtable discussion between industry leaders sharing their perspectives on how construction can grow and evolve over the next few years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ezine Udezwe. I'm the VP of Product Management at Procore. Thank you for joining us today. I will be your moderator. Steve Zahm, president of Procore, mentioned earlier that Procore has launched a construction activity index using Procore data and mapping worker hours against shelter-in-place orders to see the correlation between the two. Today, Procore is releasing new data as part of that construction activity index with regards to major metropolitan areas in the US and what that contraction looked like in relation to COVID-19. You can find more info with the link in the bottom left-hand side of your screen, the resource box, or you can go to procore.com /COVID-insights. For this session, our panelists and I will be discussing the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry and what that meant in terms of contractions, shutdowns, and reopenings. This pandemic swept across the globe quickly and fundamentally changed the way we live and work. Its effects have already changed our industry in the short term and potentially in the long term, in good ways. Today, we want to dig in and learn about the steps that our panelists and their companies have had to take to keep job sites safe and open, and how they're thinking about future-proofing for the long term and the role that technology plays. Before I introduce our panelists, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. You're able to customize the setup of your screen. All of the windows are expandable and movable, and if you'd like to see the speakers more prominently, you can expand the media player by clicking on the top right corner. You can also submit any questions that you have throughout the session using the Q&A tool. We will save time at the end to answer them. With that, I'd love to introduce our panelists and let them tell you a little more about themselves, and perhaps open up with one thing they've learned about themselves during the pandemic. Nancy, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Novak, and I'm Chief Innovation Officer for Compass Data Centers, but I've been in the built environment for many decades. The COVID has been one of those eye-opening things for everybody, I think, in the world. I'm always glasses half full kind of person, so I look at what good can come of this. Being in the data center industry, obviously, our business is booming, but we do recognize the haves and the have-nots and how the digital divide has affected a lot of individuals in our world. And so we're very focused on trying to give back in that regard. Like I said, our business, we're working with a lot of global firms, and we're working together to try to solve some of the problems that COVID brought about in a positive manner. So I'm looking forward to this discussion that we're going to have here so we can get a little bit deeper into that. Thanks.
That's great. Wes?
Hi, everyone. Wes Gibson, Chief Operating Officer at Green Mechanical Construction. We're based in Kentucky, but we've got a presence throughout the Southeast. And our specialization is plumbing and HVAC and the mechanical process for industrial applications. That's the market that we really focus on the most, design, build, industrial, but we also work within healthcare, institutional, light commercial, and other areas as well. And so one thing I've learned about our team here at Green Mechanical during the pandemic has just really been our ability to adapt in the midst of something so uncertain, and really on a personal level learned more about each other in such a time that where folks are thinking about their future, the things they care about the most. So I've learned really a lot on a personal level about my teammates.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, hi, Nick Boxall, Boxall Construction. I'm based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So we're a fourth generation family construction business, primarily working in the ICI sector, so hospital, schools, high-rise, multifamily, some light industrial. So one thing that I really learned about myself or reflected on through the pandemic was the need to have some downtime and quiet time. I think everyone's social calendar opened up quite a bit, and it really increased time with family and time to think. And I think we need to make space for that going forward after this blows over, if it does.
Yeah, I relate. What about you, Jose?
Hi there. Hi, everyone. I'm Jose Blanco. I'm a partner with McKinsey, based out of New York City. I lead our engineering, construction, and building materials, and also construction technology practice in North America. So basically serving clients across all these dimensions. One of the things maybe two things that I learned during the pandemic. One is actually, I was surprised how fast we could actually, all of us, move to a remote type of environment. It would have seemed like impossible. Told me, but it's kind of fascinating how we all adapted to that. And the second thing maybe is I've always considered myself to be an urban person, always living in big cities. Now I'm reconsidering that seriously after the quarantine. So anyway, that's the two things I learned, I would say.
Thank you. So we'll get into the questions. Construction has started opening up at different rates across the different regions of the world. Let's talk about the current state of construction in your city or state. Nancy, how is your team doing? How is business going?
So locally, there's been a lot of downturn when it comes to the construction projects that are working with financial problems, dealing with retail and hospitality. Where people aren't staying in hotels and they're not able to get out and get about. Some of the food industry, there's been some slowdown. Although we are seeing some uptick again now that things are starting to reopen. Again, I said, I'm in the data center business. So, the capacity needs have always been very high and have really gone out of control lately. So we can't hardly build fast enough. So for us, there's been great strides in being able to push the needle on infrastructure. So that's good news for construction. But I would also say that some of the other commercial projects that already had funding secured, they're going right along. I mean, I talked with all the general contractors here in the local area, and even though some things have been put on hold, they still have quite a bit of work to do. So I think that's good news for our business.
That's great. That's great to hear. What about Nick? What's going on in Winnipeg?
In Winnipeg, things are going pretty well. The central part of Canada was really unaffected by the pandemic. We had some slowdowns, some shutdowns, largely in northern Indigenous communities. Projects up north were put on hold. But we did a good job as an industry rallying together and coming up with a response to the pandemic, keeping things moving. Ourselves and most of our competitors had a really good backlog going into the pandemic. However, things are looking a little dicey going forward in terms of backlog and pipeline. So we're looking forward to see what's going to happen on that front in terms of government stimulus funding and the world economy.
Okay. Are you seeing the same, Wes? What's going on your side?
Yeah, business is really good. In the Southeast here, for better or for worse, our municipalities and state governments have pushed to reopen a little quicker. So aside from the politics side of that, construction has been pretty steady. We have seen some of those projects that were mentioned in hospitality and retail around us that have been affected, but we specialize in industrial, and so a lot of those industrial manufacturing projects are away from your major metro areas. They're kind of on the outskirts or in rural areas, and so as far as the way they've been affected by local government regulations of construction during the pandemic, there's been little to none. And so it's going well. Business is going well. Kentucky, where we're at, construction's been deemed essential, and Our associations like AGC of Kentucky, I serve on the board there. They've done very well in keeping the lines of communication open with the governor's office, with other elected officials to figure out how we can stay moving forward within healthy and safe bounds. And so I'll echo what Nick said as far as the backlog looking a little dicey going forward. I think we've seen a little bit of hesitation by private investors in manufacturing that are waiting to see what the economy does to decide whether they're going to move forward with some major projects. And so government projects and manufacturing seem pretty steady for us through the end of the year, but that's where the question marks really start to come up.
Okay, that's good. So Jose, based on Wes and Nick's points on just looking at the backlog, are there leading or lagging indicators on near-term or future projects that your team is seeing, in particular as it relates to investment or funding sources? I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. So thank you, Wes and Nick, for sharing that perspective. I think what we're hearing right now is very consistent with what you shared. Obviously, like when you see the result of new construction companies or contractors that are publicly available, obviously you've seen that many of them have been carried by their backlogs, and they will potentially be carried through their backlogs, maybe for 1 or 2 quarters more. I think the big question that we have right now is until when these backlogs are going to be able to carry the industry, and when new starts need to actually start like refilling that pipeline and actually allow the industry to grow further and to get really strong and with them in 2021. So the things that we're looking at is obviously the backlog burn that we see in many firms, but also we're keeping a close eye on 2 things. One is actually the new project licenses and new architectural licenses and even project starts, which has been a little bit more dicey, so to speak, in the past few months, although like new data that was released today, specifically in the housing market, was actually looking quite positive. And the other thing that we're looking at as well is the prospect of an infrastructure bill. I think that you look at the past 3 recessions that we've lived, 2008, 2001, and the 1990s, we've basically seen that at every point of time, every single time, there was a stimulus package that was passed by the House. It was effective in actually starting or helping to restart the economy. So I think that that's what we're looking at. And to your point earlier, people having concerns with the backlogs obviously would benefit significantly from that kind of infrastructure stimulus bill being passed. So those are the things that we're looking at right now. And of course, every single sub-market has different implications. Commercial, residential, infrastructure all behave and will behave in a different way.
Thank you. I know we're really paying attention. A lot of folks are looking at what the bills will look like and infrastructure as a whole. So thanks for sharing that perspective. Let's shift gears a little. One of the things that struck me about this is just the suddenness of the pandemic and how it required all of us to respond immediately. Generally, we have time to think about our businesses, our business processes, the technology we use in our companies, job site practices, and the like. With COVID-19, literally the industry had to pivot overnight. Nancy, I'd love to have you share how your businesses changed, shifted, and what role technology played in all of it.
Well, yeah, we did have to shift quickly. Fortunately for construction, we are used to having to deal with hazards on the job site. So we viewed this as another hazard to deal with, even though it wasn't, there was not an instant way in which we could go look at any regulatory, help or guidelines. We did look at the news and decide that, we had to protect our people. And we sort of looked at it as you would, like, if you're working in an environment that had asbestos or lead or something like that could be passed on and dangerous to other employees. So we took those guidelines, and then what we did was we immediately formed a BCP team so that we could meet every morning and every evening with our executive leadership team as well. And we talked about all of the different projects and the stages that they were in, whether we had operators inside the buildings that required different care versus open construction sites. And, we bought as many face protection masks as we possibly could, sent those to all of our job sites. We had our general contractors develop plans around their own policies to protect the workers. Our main concern was to make sure workers felt safe to come to work. But we did things like we had, remote, kind of nurses going from job to job. We had some of the temperature reading processes, and we had robots that went out onto job sites. We had drones that helped us, look at things from an infrared standpoint. So we did a lot of technology in that way. And then we also tracked, everything on a daily and weekly basis on whether anyone was associated with another person who had, been tested positive, and whether they were in quarantine. We would put trailers on our job sites that were specially designed for quarantine trailers. We brought food into the job site so that people would not have to go out to get the food. Just anything we could do to make the workers feel comfortable to show up to work and be able to earn money for their families.
Nurses going side to side is interesting and compelling. What about you, Wes? Are there any major shifts that have happened?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like Green Mechanical, we're just really finished with that pivot. And we looked at it kind of as a two-part pivot. And that first part is that reactionary, the very quick, what do we do? We're watching the news. We see there's certain municipalities shutting projects down. So we have to come up with kind of that really quick plan of action. We reached out to our attorneys. We reached out to associational leaders to get their insight on, what do we do for scenario A? What do we do for scenario B, C, so forth? And usually those are the folks that are really confident. They know where we stand. They say, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And it was the first time that, I've seen everybody just kind of be like, we're not sure what's going to happen. From the government perspective, from the way this thing plays out, there was really a lot of uncertainty with the folks who are at the forefront who usually are saying, this is what you need to do. And so we had that initial pivot as a company on, okay, to make Green Mechanical come out of this thing strong and to keep our folks safe and healthy, here's the things that we have to do. We can't wait on the CDC. We can't wait on, the industry as a whole, because that's going to take a long time. And that's that second part of the pivot that I feel like we're in, or we just came out of, is how do we do this going forward in the medium term? We know this is going to be here for a little while, there's talks of vaccines and so on, but really, what are the standards of the medium term during the pandemic and then beyond when it comes to health and well-being of not just safety procedural things on job sites, but really just health in general and the well-being of your employees mentally and emotionally?
Wes, I think you raise a really important point, that in the past, we often as an industry looked at safety as a physical necessity or as it relates to quality. But the fact that suddenly safety becomes like more multidimensional in terms of physical, emotional, mental well-being of the employees, and that has a part to play in quality and productivity. Is this something that you think you'll take into consideration going forward? Is this an enduring shift for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that has come to the forefront. You see the people that you work with, not just the folks out on the job site that you see every once in a while if you're coming from the office, but the folks you work side by side with in your offices. A pandemic is a jarring thing mentally and emotionally. And so, you really get to dig down with folks that there's been some deep interpersonal relational conversations within our business here and learning about our people. And there's the whole business side of that as well, as when folks are scared, when emotions are running high on what's going to happen, then obviously, productivity goes down, efficiency goes down, folks are really on edge. And so, it's made us reevaluate not just that job site safety, which is important. The industry has really been pushing for a long time, but really the safety and well-being of the entire person, mentally, emotionally. How do we listen to our people to hear their concerns, not just to hear them, but then to turn around and be able to say, okay, how can we help this? How can we help you? What can we do to be a better company going forward? And really just trying to communicate more often, week to week. New things are coming out, new policies and procedures masks, all these different things, and saying not only a bulletin of, hey, this is what we're doing, but this is why we're doing it. And if you feel like there's an issue, please reach out. Let's talk about it. So it's definitely made us reevaluate thinking about emotional and mental health as well.
Thanks for sharing. What about you, Nick? Have there been any major operational changes with regards to health and safety, or even something else that you've put in place since COVID?
Yeah, so I think there's many of the obvious ones that are out there. Jack, what Wes is saying, the mental health aspect is very important. We've always had a proactive HR side to our company in terms of offering supports and counseling, and when there is stress or emotional distress related to anything, not just a pandemic. So I think those are good practices to have in place. One thing that we're really pushing for as an industry is to increase the need for hygiene on site as a specified requirement in contracts going forward. So level the playing field and have respect for the workers doing the work. A simple thing like a hand washing station wasn't necessarily prevalent on any of our job sites in the past, and now they're everywhere. So we'd like to see an improvement in that. In terms of operational changes, the other obvious one is working from home. So we've seen a lot of benefits from that in terms of virtual meetings and efficiencies we gain in terms of time. We're also able to reach a lot more people through those virtual meetings, so internal and external. And that's something that we'll maintain going forward for sure.
Oh, that's good. Jose, you have a macro level view of all of this. What are you seeing from the industry on the types of changes that are being made? Maybe even speak about how you think they're changing the business of construction or business as a whole.
Yeah, look, I think that the big questions that we're seeing right now, the big questions that we're actually wrestling with is how many of the changes that we're seeing are going to be permanent versus non-permanent, right? I think that that's the big questions that we're actually getting from everyone. Because I think that during the pandemic, we've seen people shifting to a much remote, like maximizing the use of the digital tools. And this is something that we've always thought in the industry will take a long time. And almost we've had like a crash course in the past 2 months of actually how you adopt and do new things. The other thing is we've seen not only the technology usage, but also the operating model of the firms themselves is actually starting to, people are starting to rethink that. Like, hey, maybe I don't need that much physical footprint to actually execute the work that I need all that. Maybe I can work more remotely, right? That these actually have proven the whole thing. But at the same time, as they think through all that, because they go, do I need to actually send half of my, workforce actually to work remotely now, and we don't need the physical footprint on the office. But at the same time, they're thinking, okay, so what are the implications of culture, right? Are you going to be able to sustain a culture or to build a culture if half of my workers are being remote, not remote? So I think that right now where the industry is wrestling with is we had this experience where we actually managed to very quickly translate from a physical presence or type of work to actually a remote type of environment, where we potentially have observed that there's some benefits to that because we became more agile, we became less bureaucratic, we get things done in a much more faster and potentially effective way. So the question is, going forward, as we actually reopen the economy and reopen all the rest of the elements, what are we going to do? Are we going to go back to the old self? Are we going to stay in the new kind of normal, or is this something in the middle? And I think that potentially the answer is something in the middle, and we need to discuss. But I think that the operating models of the firms will change going forward. I think there's going to be more technology adoption, and people are, going to be able to say, okay, I realize the value that all these digital tools actually are bringing to me. But then we're going to be seeing much more focus in culture, specifically if you shift towards a much more remote environment going forward.
Oh. So for Procore, we believe that culture has a lot to do with just who we are and the productivity as a whole. So that's an interesting angle and just an interesting way to look at it. I'll stay with you, Jose. Analysis of 2 McKinsey scenarios suggests that in a contained virus situation, growth will be about 4% in 2021 versus 2019. And in an uncontained scenario, there could be potentially an 11% drop in 2021 versus 2019, with a return to pre-crisis productivity not until Q4 of 2024. Wow. Can you comment more on the McKinsey findings and the work your team has been doing, spearheading? Do you have a hypothesis on what recovery might look like, given where we are today and what it'll take to get to normal? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. So we created like a series of no. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh. Sorry about that. So we've created a series of different scenarios, basically in two dimensions. I mean, how fast can the economy recovery, and how effective are going to be the economic measures or policy measures that people are putting in place, right? So with that, we generated a series of scenarios. I think it's a 3x3 matrix that probably most of you have seen, where you see like from the most kind of like, optimistic to the worst kind of like type of scenario in terms of like a E-shape to actually an L-shaped type of recovery. Reality is, as we talk to people in the industry and we talk to other like business, we talk to other business leaders, basically we are between two scenarios, what we call A1 and A3. And these scenarios are one that is called like a quick recovery, and the other one is what we call a muted recovery, right? Under the most optimistic one, we could be in a scenario where we go to pre-crisis levels as quick as, in terms of construction output, I mean. But we are in the most pessimistic, we can go to actually construction output by mid-2022. So it's almost like a 12 months kind of thing. Obviously, these numbers change by the day. We're trying to actually, cross-reference all this information that we gather, generated scenarios that we put together based on a GDP basis and construction output with high-frequency data, like you guys collect, for example. So the answer to that is, yeah, I think that most people feel that between the two scenarios, either like a quick recovery that gives us back to the 3 levels mid-2021, or like a more longer that actually gets to mid-2022. Reality is probably worth something in the middle. And I think that the reality is when I talk about construction output, obviously I'm talking as an average, right? Across many different prospects or many different types of asset classes. And of course, if I simplify and I think about infrastructure or commercial construction and housing as an example, all of them have very different prospects. Infrastructure, of course, potentially driven by an infrastructure bill, is probably the one that you have the most positive outlook. And as I said before, the reason for that is because it's been proven an effective way of actually reactivate the economy, reactivate the spend. So, if an infrastructure bill passes, that will be one of the first ones to spike and actually come back to pre-crisis level. Then I think I'm pretty optimistic on the housing side of things. And the reason for that is because there was an underlying demand of housing. There was a shortage of housing, specifically if you think about single family. I think that was driven by the Generation X and baby boomers demand. And we also saw like a significant levels of like low leverage for households. Actually, what was the lowest level since 2001. So there was like the fundamental intrinsic of the housing market was pretty strong. And now, if we see people basically like probably going to much more suburban areas or choosing to live in much more suburban areas, that can only add another tailwind to the housing market. So I'm pretty like optimistic about that. On the commercial side is probably the one that we have like right, because we have a lot of companies that are declaring work from home policies. We may impact occupancy or basically demand for office space, specifically probably Class B and Class C. But that's something that we still see. Again, even if we will have potentially like an increased work from home kind of like environment, we also potentially will have an effect of like in the offices, people need more social distancing, right? So a little bit like the opposite effect that we've seen so far from densification, right? So it's a little bit like a much more unclear what's going to happen with commercial construction. So anyway, all in all, we're actually living between these two scenarios, with some of the asset classes having a much positive outlook or clear outlook of path to recover pre-crisis level dynamic.
Yeah, that does. Nick and Nancy, Wes shared some shifts that they've had to make, particularly around safety. I guess for me, and I'm sure the audience would love to, are there positive outcomes of COVID that will advance or improve your business, things that are going to stick around from your point of view? And particularly, I'd love to, it's probably a compound question, but the role of technology in construction that has probably been amplified by COVID. Just speak to me about what you think will endure and perhaps the role technology has played in some of those changes or positive outcomes. So we'll start with Nick.
All right, yeah, so I think I already mentioned it before, but going to virtual meetings and things like that certainly helps and will stick with us. So like in 2019, we had implemented Procore and Teams across our entire portfolio, but what the pandemic really did was accelerate our adoption of it and really helped us hone in on how to use it efficiently. So those technology programs that allow for connection and workflow optimization will certainly stick with us, and I think many other contractors should adopt those. If you're still using paper POs and spreadsheets to run your business, it's a little harder to do remotely in an agile way. So yeah, I think going forward, the main thing would be the use of those programs and virtual connection, but in a balanced way, as Jose mentioned. It can't all be virtual all the time. We need face-to-face time to connect with people and build our company culture.
Yeah, and I would say shame on us if we don't really move the needle in a positive way to advance our industry, because the construction industry has suffered from a standpoint of being more productive over the past 3 decades. And we do have the technology, it just hasn't really been normalized in a way that it should. So I'm hoping that this helps us see how critical going to an offsite manufacturing environment can be, and how critical it can be to start utilizing tools that will allow us to do more with less skilled labor, because the labor right now is a shortage, and the demand is still there. I mean, infrastructures around the globe are still in need. I mean, we have crumbling infrastructures in the Western world. We have the Eastern world trying to leapfrog ahead of the Western world with infrastructure. And now more than ever, we've seen that, having the connection, like Nick was just saying, is not a luxury. This is a utility that needs to be, given and provided to everybody to the best extent. And it's supposed to be the great equalizer, and it will become the great divider if we don't figure out how to get access to those folks who don't have it, and teach them and give them the tools that they'll need. So I think this is a great opportunity for our industry to pivot in a positive way, utilizing technology to become, to come into the future, basically.
I think I'd love to start opening it up to questions, but before I do that, I just want to make sure I give all of you an opportunity to just share with us just advice or wrap up. But so COVID brought a lot of uncertainty. It exposed a ton of just opportunities in my opinion. So given everything you've had to go through in the last few weeks, what advice would you give to others in terms of their businesses, their projects moving forward? There was a lot of comments around digitization, but I just want you to put a finer point on it if you don't mind. Nick, you alluded to it earlier, but for those who are tuned in, the audience, what advice would you give them in just being ready to capture wherever construction is going?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to pay attention to the trends that are out there. They're usually in a good indicator of where efficiency is going to go. No one can predict what will happen next, or could have predicted what was going to happen. So I think being at the forefront of what is available to create efficiency in your business is important. At least gives you the option to run with that. If you're still 30 years behind and don't have a lot of resiliency or flexibility, it's a lot harder to pivot and react to the changes that are out there.
Jose, what about you? What do you think?
Folks, is always the following. I think when you go through a situation like this where no one can even have foreseen, I mean, very few people probably we had contingency plans to deal with anything that actually resembled this. I think you can get caught in the very short term of firefighting. I understand that for many firms, you know, day to day, like the paycheck, like cash is a concern, is an issue. But I think that as a result of this, I mean, some people are going to come stronger at the end of this crisis. Some people are going to become weaker or become weaker. And I think that the reality is every time I talk to folks, you know, 80% of the time, sometimes it's actually focused on the day-to-day and the fires and, you know, how do I deal with this and how they will deal with other things. What I normally tell my clients and the broader industry is like, I know it's hard and I know it's just like there's a lot of issues in the short term, but we need to start you need to start segmenting or basically dividing the time you spend to deal with the issues in the short term versus actually thinking about what opportunities might be in the future, how you can come stronger. Specifically, given that when you think about specifically in the US, it's almost you have different curves of recovery for every state, right? So every state is a different path, every state is a different element. So you need to be thinking ahead around what is it I'm going to do to actually come stronger out of that. And I think that people are slowly pivoting to that. And what I tell my clients and I tell some advice is like, you need to be thinking about the short term, no question about it, but someone needs to be thinking about the long term and probably can be the same person because otherwise you're always going to default to thinking about the short term. So kind of like separating these two things and having that kind of foresight around how does my firm needs to look at in 1, 2, 3 years and what are the implications of everything that is happening going forward. That's something pretty important.
Are you muted, Wes?
I hear you there. Sorry. So on my end, advice goes to you know, you have two separate sides to this. You've got the business and the financial side of trying to plan for what Jose is saying there, that near and long term. Then you have the people, the workforce side as well. And so, you know, we saw this Great Recession, the same thing of just trying to get backlog. You know, my advice is to really, you know, diversify in your sector if you can. You know, we are lucky to work for some clients that aren't all in one specific sector. You know, you've got folks that just do hospitality construction. That's an example that's been hit really, really hard. And so I think that's on the business side, is to really dive in, build that backlog, and try to work with your customers as well and finding, you know, some safe havens. And on the workforce side, really, you know, building that long-term plan of what are we going to do going forward to plan for something like this, because it was mentioned just a second ago, you know, this is not anything that any of us really ever thought would have come about. And so you combine that with the workforce shortage throughout our industry, and things get a little dicey. And so, you know, I think we have to plan on going forward with health and well-being, aside from job site safety, as a major portion. And I would tell folks as well to get involved with your associations, whether it be AGC, ABC. You know, that is a way for you to have a voice, to be able to get the ear of the folks in Congress and your state representatives, all those things, to where we can figure out as an industry and as local economies ways to prevent some of the things that have happened in this pandemic. So.
Okay. Nancy, I know you said it was shame on us kind of for not taking advantage of this all along. Any advice you give now in addition to that?
Just to wrap, I mean, I would be remiss if I did not mention that one of the major improvements that we can make and that we can learn from throughout this is to make our industry more inclusive. So think about that. If we can work from home, it's no longer the inconvenience of not having to commute 3 hours and work a 12-hour day and not be able to find daycare, right? And it can be a more inclusive environment, which I think brings innovation, because as we know, the business case around being inclusive is it brings diversity of thought and more talent to the talent pool. So I would be remiss for not mentioning that that's an absolute top priority for us. And I would hope that our business would take advantage of understanding what we went through or what we've been still going through on the COVID from the virtual world. And also, like I said, again, the offsite manufacturing environment to do more with less, to Wes's point about being able to, understand that our workforce is aging and our workforce, also is looking to want to be more productive. And I think having a more inclusive workforce will solve some of those problems as well.
Thank you, Nancy. That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, actually. I'll pause now to see the questions that have come in and see if we can at least get a few of them answered. I have one. Have any of your companies had to use the incidents tool to track COVID-related issues? Have you had to provide this information to a third party as a result? So what are the lessons learned about this experience? Nancy, or do you have anything, or?
I mean, we the BCP team, they would report any incidents internally. We have had up in Canada, the authorities were aware of some, quarantines that we had to do. And then down in North Carolina, we did have one of our GCs that was quarantined for a couple of weeks. That was during the time when we were doing the virtual commissioning because of that incident. So we had to get real creative there. But as far as like having it be a safety incident and reporting it as such, no, we've not done that.
Trying to unmute myself. Sorry about that. Thank you. Another question is, has the COVID-19 experience stimulated thoughts of having more robots on the job sites? Thinking about Spot the Dog getting a price tag this week. I guess I'll direct that to you, Jose. In terms of technology advancement, I guess, and innovation, is there a scenario where robotics takes on a more prominent role on job sites?
Well, I think that I think that robotics has always been as one of the next big things, right? And the reason is because I mean, some of the information that we can capture and collect may actually reduce for the risk for people, for hazard, right? I just don't see specifically that how COVID actually has specifically like pushed robotics. I think what COVID has done is actually just probably like open minds of folks. In terms of like, we need to look at technology in a different way. We need to really speed up the adoption of technology. So I think it has opened the minds of many different people, I mean, both in the private and the public sector, to see how we can leverage this to actually really take a step change, right? Starting probably with social tracing and distance tracing, like right after we come up from the crisis, but also in terms of like the broader collaboration tools that we have. So I think that I wouldn't say like has a specifically pushed a technology, right? As specifically what has done is actually open our minds and basically open the minds of the people that actually are working in the industry to, we need to leverage fully to the full extent what we have in front of us to really work differently in the future. And that might have the consequence of actually like, not only robotics, but many other areas such as, augmented reality, virtual reality, and many other elements that are already there, technologies that are already there, but have been peripheral to what we do, may get a renewed push going forward.
Okay. I think this will have to be our final question. I guess I can throw it to Wes or Nick. How could contractors cope with the crisis of cash to invest high-tech tools where still an even results not even witnessed? Sorry, just how can contractors cope with the crisis of cash to invest in high-tech tools? Just if you would give me a quick answer on that, if any of you have a thought.
I think that's a really good question. I being on the operations side of construction, I keep a pretty tight relationship with our CFO here, and that's a question every week during the crisis: is what's the bank balances looking like? What's cash flow looking like? And these questions are brought forward. People probably wanted to say, well, I mean, I'd love to invest in this, but we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're worried about cash flow. And so crisis is contextual, right? Crisis, some of us may be getting below a certain balance, and for others, it may just be not knowing if you can meet payroll. And so I think what you have to do is if you're in a cash crunch, it's hard to go after the high tech stuff that doesn't have. I think the way I understood the question maybe was that there's not a lot of data on the success of those over the long term. So I think what you do is you build up to maybe below that, look for partners with your general contractors and other trade contractors on some of that technology as well. We've seen that just as a company of, well, let's share this and work together using this technology. And then after a year, if everything is good, we'll both go kind of get our own. So I think that's a way to approach it as well.
Thank you so much for that. I have to wrap up. I just want to say this has actually been really insightful. There's this recognition of an expanded definition of safety to something more multifaceted, a recognition and perhaps more a realization that productivity on site doesn't mean that people have to be on site. Nancy mentioned this with a couple of things they're doing, how virtual meetings and digital communication connect people, but also have an ability to actually improve reach. Jose mentioned that productivity gains some companies are seeing with COVID can't necessarily be banked because they have implications that we may not want to live through, or implications to our culture. And then the last is really just the acceleration of technology in an industry and the benefits we've almost had to have overnight. That's just a lot to chew on. With that, I'd like to say thank you to our panelists, Nancy, Wes, Nick, Jose. Thank you for speaking with us today. To the audience, thank you for attending. There is a quick 1-minute survey that will show up shortly. We would love to hear your feedback so we can keep improving our virtual events. For any questions we were not able to address now, we'll be sure to follow up with you. In terms of materials that were referred to during this discussion, you can find the McKinsey reports on www.mckinsey.com. And for the Procore construction activity report data, go to procore.com/COVID-insights. We hope you, your families, your loved ones, and your teams continue to do well. Thank you all so very much. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye, all.